My pleasure to welcome you to this convocation this morning. Today is one of those very special days in which we pause briefly to celebrate the attainment of a long-awaited objective, the utilization of this handsome new building, created as it has been to house and make possible a vigorous set of programs in architecture and planning. We're just delighted that you've chosen to be with us on this Thanksgiving celebration. Festivities that have been planned are many-faceted, and I must take a moment or two to give you a few simple directions. Immediately following this dedicatory ceremony, we'll go to the 5th and the 6th floors of this building in order to partake of a stand-up informal luncheon. There are 2 or 3 ways to get to the 5th and 6th floor, but the elevator is recommended. Only those people who know the building had better try to walk. The elevator is on the east end of the building, and there'll be plenty for everyone. Once on the 5th or the 6th floor, we hope that you will percolate down through the structure and see the entire building and enjoy it. Then let's just check your program and make sure I'm saying the same thing that it says. At 1:30, here in this building, the students who were with Professor Rosenman in London last spring will describe their experiences under the title of PolyArc London Lab 72. If there are people here now who didn't get here earlier this morning to see the first showing of that, I commend it to you. Then beginning at 2:30, a series of presentations of Muncie, the Microcosm of America, prepared by Professor Kurtich and his associates, will be shown in the new University Hall. Now, it will take a combination of ingenuity and persistence for you to get from here to there, but as long as the good Lord is gracious as he has been up to now, and it's not snowing or raining, it's not so very bad. I would commend to you that you go out the east entrance of the building, across the walks that you'll find there in front of the residence hall, and these will take you to University Hall, which you can recognize as a new Indiana limestone building with some decorative molding around the windows. Once you get in, you'll find some additional decoration. I say that it's a problem because of the excavation that's going on for the development of the new library. For those of you who choose to go the other direction, you can go directly south on McKinley Avenue and turn at the end of the excavation past the little theater, and you'll find yourself at Assembly Hall. For those of you who would prefer to ride, there is a bus which will come and go and carry as many of you as would care to ride. The bus can be boarded across the street on the north side in front of the College of Business, former home of the College of Architecture and Planning. It's my privilege to introduce to you some of the distinguished guests who are with us today. It's not possible for me to introduce each of you, all 400 of you, distinguished as you are, but I think you'd like to have me introduce just a few. And so I would like to draw to your attention and have them stand, and after all of them have been introduced, you can give them your applause. The members of the platform party who will not be introduced in another way or as far as the program is concerned. On my right and your left, Mr. Will Parker, member of the Board of Trustees, Ball State University. Mr. Tom Wallace, member of the Board of Trustees, Ball State University. And on my left, Mr. Thomas Harrison, member of the Board of Trustees of Ball State University. I think all the others will have a part of the program. Now, if I've been correctly informed, we have some representatives of the General Assembly of the State of Indiana. And if he's here, I'd like to call on Lieutenant Governor-elect Senator Robert Orr. All right. Thank you very much. And we're particularly delighted to have Senator Wilford J. Ulrich, Aurora, Indiana. Senator Ulrich was the member of the committee to study the feasibility of establishing the College of Architecture in the state of Indiana and one of the sponsors of the bill. State Representative and Mrs. Elmer McDonald from Fort Wayne. McDonald? Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. And with him, former State Representative and Mrs. David Metziger. Mr. McDonald and Mr. Metziger were co-sponsors of the bill in the House of Representatives. We have State Representative-elect and Mrs. Samuel Reed from the community of Muncie, way in the back. All right, fine. We have at least one representative from the Commission, Indiana Commission for Higher Education, Mr. Van Smith and Mrs. Smith. Thank you, Van. And we're delighted to have with us today the mayor of the community of Muncie. Uppermost in our minds, isn't it? We hadn't thought of asking the mayor for money, had we? The governor and the commission. One of the stars of the program entitled Muncie, Microcosm of America, Paul Cooley, the Honorable Paul Cooley. All of you who are here know that the project of this dimension had to have a beginning, and it had to have a beginning just a few years ago. As president of the university at that time and responsible for the green light and the encouragement which led to this particular day, I want to recognize President Emeritus John R. Emmons and Mrs. Emmons. We have some representatives of the architectural profession. We're particularly delighted to have the president of the American Institute of Architects with us, Mr. Max Irwin. And the immediate past president of the American Society of Landscape Architects and director of the foundation, Mr. Campbell Miller. He's back here. Mr. Arthur Burns from the Indiana Society of Architects. Mr. John Fleck from the National President Construction Specifications Institute. Mr. Bruce Yoder, President of the Indiana chapter of the American Institute of Planners. Mr. Yoder. Mr. John Lancius, President of the Indiana chapter of American Society of Landscape Architects. He's back here in the corner. Just checking the sequence here, I do want to take just a minute to make special mention of one individual who cannot be with us today because he labored so tirelessly for architecture, for architects, and for architectural education. I refer to Donald Gibson, Executive Secretary of the Indiana Society of Architects, now deceased, who worked so hard to make this possible. And I think he should be mentioned today. Whenever we have a dedication of a building, we like to recognize the architect and the work that he has done, and this particular building has particular significance in that context. I'd now like to ask Mr. Melvin Berkey, South Bend American Institute of Architects, to stand and be recognized. And Mrs. Berkey, since you're responsible, would you stand too? Now, as we move to the specific dedication of this building, it's my pleasure and privilege to present to you Mr. Calvin Brand, the Director of the State Budget Agency, who is representing the Honorable Edgar D. Whitcomb, Governor of the State of Indiana. Mr. Bracken.
Thank you, Mr. Burkhardt, President Pruis, honored guests, and all of you nice people here attending this very special ceremony today. It is my privilege to represent Governor Whitcomb at your ceremony today in this special occasion. I know he regrets very much that he can't be here, but it happens that there's a conflict with the Republican Governors Conference, and this will probably be his last Governors Conference. And if you have somebody miss our Republican Governors Conferences nowadays, it's very noticeable because we don't have very many. And they really held it at this particular time so that the governors-elect, as well as the incumbent governors, could go and then make the crowd reasonably sizable. This is really, very seriously, an extra special privilege for me. I suppose it's necessary to say at least a word or two about the fact that the state supports this school. And I think the very best evidence of the support of the state of Indiana for this fine school of architecture and planning is the fact that it's here. And now, not only state support is the reason it's here. I was particularly interested to hear Don Gibson's name mentioned. I became acquainted with Don in our mutual efforts in behalf of this particular effort. I'm going to take the opportunity to reminisce about my own particular. I'm not an architect. I'm very pleased and honored to be an honorary member of the Indiana Society of Architects. And this school is the primary reason I suspect that I am an honorary member. Heard Senator Ulrich recognized and Representative McDonald and former Representative Mesker. And I think one other name that really should have been in that list, who probably isn't here, but he had an awful lot to do with our getting the first money. Irwin, you know what I'm talking about, and that's Bob Banner. But it was my good fortune to be president of the Indiana Lumber Dealers Association at the time we were working on this. And then, John, you'll remember later, the Building Congress of Indiana, which is all of the construction and building trades of the entire state. And we had wonderful help and support from people in Indiana government at that time. And then later, it was my good fortune to get involved a little more directly in Indiana government. And I was on Ways and Means in 1967 when we took the hard look at the funding that was necessary on this. And then a little later, when inflation and time made it necessary to take a little second look at money, I happened to be chairman of the State Budget Committee. And now it's my privilege to be here and represent Governor Whitcomb and wish this fine school of this fine university the very best of good luck and good fortune in the future. And I do sincerely want to impress upon you that Governor Whitcomb would have liked very much to have been here today. He's very proud of this fine university as well as all of our fine institutions of higher education in Indiana. And I know only something like the Governor's Conference would have kept him from being with you today. And I extend to you for him his very best wishes and his hopes for continued success in the future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bracken. There's a direct line between the state of Indiana and the university here at Ball State, and it goes right through the Board of Trustees and to the chairman of the Board of Trustees, who is on this side. May I present to you now Alexander M. Bracken, chairman of the Board of Trustees of Ball State University.
Dean Burkhardt and President Pruis, honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen. Rich, a couple of remarks you made there made me do some thinking. First, when you describe University Hall as Indiana limestone with some special decoration around the windows, makes me wonder a little bit just where all the money went that we put into that building. Certainly it was described to us far differently than that. And I believe it really deserves a better description. I hope so. Also, I think you're describing them, Mayor Cooley as the mayor of money, Indiana, gives us also some things to think about as trustees of the university. Well, this certainly is a memorable day for Ball State to dedicate this building, which houses the College of Architecture and Planning of the university. I think it's significant, perhaps, to recall that the word architect is derived from two Greek words. I shan't attempt to pronounce the Greek in the presence of this august body, but the two Greek words actually mean master and builder. And so I think that actually we could think today that we are dedicating this very handsome structure to the preparation of the master builders of tomorrow. And it certainly is a distinct pleasure to take part in this convocation representing the Board of Trustees, and also to recognize the designer and the architect, Melvin Berkey, and the scores of craftsmen whose endeavors brought forth what we see in this building, this edifice of form and function. I think this occasion also provides the opportunity for us to recognize and honor the creative efforts of another group of builders. And I am reminded here one of the definitions of a building is putting the parts together. And the parts that eventually fell into place for us actually had their origin in the authorization of the Indiana General Assembly, Mr. Brandt remarked, in its 93rd session, wherein a commission was appointed to study the feasibility of establishing a College of Architecture and Planning in Indiana. The committee was headed by Representative Morris Goodnight of Lafayette. And of course, as you can well imagine, the work carried the members of the committee to at least 5 Indiana cities. Well, here in Muncie, they certainly found a group of civic and industrial leaders who had been appointed by the mayor, then Mayor Hampton, who worked very closely in cooperation with Ball State and the people here to present a case for the location of the school at this institution. In fact, I remember a comment that was made at that time that Muncie wants the College of Architecture and Planning just as much as Ball State does. And the people of this community showed that desire by their help in presenting what this community had to offer. And it was in July of 1964 that the Legislative Committee announced that Ball State had been selected as the site for the College of Architecture and Planning. And then at the next session of the General Assembly, Representative Dave Metzger, who's introduced here today, and Representative Elmer McDonald of Fort Wayne introduced the bill to establish the College of Architecture and Planning at then Ball State Teachers College. The General Assembly approved the bill in March of 1965, and it was signed into law by Governor Brannigan. It was only a matter of months after that, and there were many people who felt that the fact that we had the establishment of the School of Architecture located here, that just a few months after this action, the name of Ball State Teachers College by act of the legislature was changed to Ball State University. And so today we honor not only the builders of this building, but we honor those who labor together and fit the parts into place that made it possible. And all of them certainly deserve our deepest expression of appreciation. And so, on behalf of the trustees of the university, I express for them our joy in this occasion, and certainly our fervent hope that this magnificent building will serve the generations of students through the teaching and learning which will take place here, and also will serve the generations of citizens of the state of Indiana through the results of the efforts of the students in this school. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bracken. And now to accept from the Board of Trustees the responsibility for this building and the programs in it, I present to you the President of the University, Dr. John J. Pruis.
Vice President Burkhardt, distinguished members of the platform party, others gathered here today, including the members of the faculty. The formal dedication of a new educational building is always a happy occasion. The product of years of planning and work on the part of many people stands fresh and clean for all to see and enjoy. At such a time, one is frequently tempted to focus on the physical properties of the structure involved, and this is understandable. Today we are assembled in an impressive example of the final result of the designer, the architectural and engineering staffs, the contractors, supervisors, the craftsmen, tradesmen, and laborers, the suppliers, and many others who contributed to the process of bringing a concept to finished form and reality. That their work was worthy and that the result is outstanding is evident to all of us. Significant though it is, however, and obviously a prerequisite to this ceremony, the structure itself should not occupy the center of our attention today. It is also possible on an occasion such as this to dwell on the very vital financial designing and engineering, if you will, requisite to the completion of the project. We can also attest without hesitation here to the effectiveness and the persistence of those of our own staff charged with the responsibility and the ready understanding, cooperation, and support which they received from several quarters. And this can be established by the fact that the General Assembly of our state appropriated nearly $1,300,000 for this facility. In excess of $620,000 were received from federal sources, and university dollars amounting to approximately $320,000 were made available by our Board of Trustees. But again, essential as this support surely was, and grateful as we are not gathered to celebrate the fiscal dimension of the project. We do certainly wish to remember and express our deep appreciation for the dedicated efforts of the many members of the university staff under the leadership of then-President John R. Emmons in presenting successfully the desirability of establishing the College of Architecture and Planning on the Ball State University campus. They were, as has been indicated, supported wholeheartedly by the Board of Trustees, by influential individuals and groups from this community, by the Indiana Society of Architects, and by the Special Study Committee of the Indiana Legislative Advisory Commission, and again, many others. On behalf of the entire university, I do extend our sincere thanks for all those early efforts, without which this day and this ceremony would be impossible. The most important purpose of this ceremony, however, is to reaffirm our belief in the value of the educational enterprise for the student and for society, and to dedicate this handsome and functional building to the ends for which it was intended. Here we have a grand place where students and faculty can learn and teach, where knowledge and skills and attitudes can be examined and developed, where problems can be defined and analyzed, and where solutions can be proposed and tested, where the future itself can be sought and envisioned, where people can grow. We trust that all who will make use of this significant addition to our campus will be the better for it, and that which they gain here may find expression in the making of a better world. To those ends, we do dedicate this building.
Thank you very much, President Pruis. It's very fortunate that we have such a tall, broad-shouldered, attractive, capable young man as we do to be Dean of the College of Architecture and Planning, to accept the challenge that the President has just laid on him, which was laid on him some time ago. I'll be interested to see how you respond to that challenge, Dean Sappenfield.
Ladies and gentlemen, if our faculty and students and staff today seem a little breathless, we are. A university crew assembled the new library shelves and disassembled the old on Thursday and Friday, while a dozen faculty, library staff, and students transferred 10,000 volumes between 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock. And this morning at 8 o'clock, I found the Polyarch, the London students, rehearsing their show. But we appreciate your being here. And we hope today to interest you and honor you and thank you and introduce you to the people and programs of this college. I must thank especially everyone who participated in the competition and the building planning: advisor, jury, competitors, faculty, staff, students, and of course Mel Burkhardt. The competition jury, we think, picked a winner. This building has already won its first AIA award, and to judge the jury, Mel Burkhardt, since winning the award for this building, has won additional awards, 2 additional awards for 2 buildings he has designed in Indiana. Mel was only 28 years old when he won the competition. And can any of you here, and especially the professionals, can you imagine having 20 architects and several hundred architectural students as clients? But Mel depended upon a whole team of engineers and landscape architects, construction firms, as well as his client team. Everything about this building was accomplished through teamwork. And in this building, we promote teamwork, not merely through the concurrent education of architects and landscape architects and planners, but by the teamwork required from the public and other professionals. The building is an ever-changing environment, and we did a lot of changing this week, but it's an ever-changing environment which acts as headquarters for our team and a gathering place for public and professionals. You know, our environmental professionals are late bloomers. We reach our peaks supposedly at middle age. Our students will reach their performance peak in the year 2000. Ultimately, however, the success of our students and our faculty and our alumni depends on their joint efforts with you. We hope for your continued help to us. We think this building a fitting place for all of us to pursue a superior environment. And we thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much, Dean Sappenfield. And now to proceed with the awarding of honorary degrees to President Pruis.
Come forward. Henry L. Kemphefner, architectural educator, professional architect, author, and lecturer. You, Henry L. Kemphefner, have been a significant contributor to superior architecture in the United States through your own lifelong practice and insistence upon quality architecture, and through your innovative work in architectural education. For 35 years, you have guided and inspired countless students of architecture. In addition to having a number of prominent architects among your former students, 6 have become deans of American schools of architecture. Ball State University is in your debt for the wise professional counsel and helpful advice you gave the university when it was organizing Indiana's first publicly assisted College of Architecture and Planning in April 1965. As a member of the American Institute of Architects Advisory Committee on the establishment of new schools of architecture, and as president of the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture, you suggested criteria and guidelines for the successful establishment of Ball State's newest college. Educated in architecture at the University of Illinois and Columbia University, you have been engaged in private practice, served as an architect and designer for the United States Navy, professor of architecture and coordinator of campus planning for the University of Oklahoma, and since 1948, Dean of the School of Design of North Carolina State University at Raleigh. A Fellow of the American Institute of Architects, you have been a member of its National Honor Award juries, served on 3 advisory committees for the establishment of new schools of architecture, and served on the Commission on Architecture of the National Council of Churches. Co-author of 3 books, you are also author of numerous articles in professional journals. Ball State University is honored to confer upon you, Henry L. Kemphefner, the degree of Doctor of Laws, with all the rights and privileges thereunto pertaining. Mr. Eli Lilly. All of us in Indiana are indebted to you, Eli Lilly, for your appreciation of Indiana's past and your conscientious dedication to the preservation and restoration of many of this state's finest historic buildings and landmarks. Our lives are enriched because of your great personal concern that the best of our heritage should not be lost to neglect, decay, or the bulldozer. You have assisted in the restoration of Grouseland, the Vincennes home of Indiana's territorial governor, William Henry Harrison, Christ Church Cathedral of Indianapolis, and the Kemper Clippinger home in Indianapolis. Your support of the Historic Landmarks Foundation of Indiana has made possible the restoration of 2 outstanding examples of Indianapolis architecture: the Morris Butler home, one of the rare decorative arts museums of the high Victorian era, complete with the Belter collection of furniture, and the 19th century waiting station at Crown Hill Cemetery. One of Indiana's priceless examples of an early farm and trading post, the Connor Prairie Farm, south of Noblesville, was your personal restoration project. Thousands of visitors each year share in the life of a frontier farm as they visit this authentic educational museum. President of the Indiana Historical Society from 1933 to 1946, you have supported the Society in countless ways, including the publication of many valuable volumes shared with its members. Your extensive collection of Indian relics and prehistoric articles of the mound builders, gifts to the Society, attest in part to your interest in Indiana's earliest residents. As author or editor of 4 books, you have helped record significant historical data of value to students of Indiana history. Graduate of the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy and Science, you have contributed significantly to the progress of one of America's most vital industries through your lifelong association with Eli Lilly and Company. Ball State University is honored indeed to recognize your contributions to architecture, archaeology, the arts, and history, Eli Lilly, and to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. Dr. Lilly. Irwin Miller. Columbus, Indiana, with its many fine examples of contemporary architecture, has been cited as the most exciting small city in America. Schools, churches, a public library, an industrial plant, banks, and a golf clubhouse have been designed by a veritable who's who of the world's foremost architects. Renewal and restoration programs in downtown Columbus also have transformed this community into a viable architectural laboratory that attracts architects, students of architecture, journalists, and city planners from around the world. This ongoing program, which you, J. Irwin Miller, have initiated and supported through special Cummins Engine Foundation grants to underwrite architectural fees for new public buildings, has resulted in more than 25 structures which make Columbus a showplace of urban design. Your unique architectural design program for public buildings proves that old cities can be revitalized and that good architecture sets standards of excellence for other new buildings in the community. For your contributions to the profession of architecture, the American Institute of Architects has made you an honorary member. Your influence, Irwin Miller, has also been recognized in business, governmental, and religious life, the latter on a worldwide scale as you serve on the World Council of Churches Commission of the Churches on International Affairs. First lay president of the National Council of Churches, you were honored by the American Jewish Committee with its Civil Leadership Award and by the National Recreation and Park Association with a National Humanitarian Award. Honored and respected in the business community, you have been invited to serve as chairman of 2 presidential commissions, the Special Committee on U.S. Trade with East European countries and the Soviet Union, and the National Advisory Commission on Health Manpower. Graduate of Yale University and Oxford University, you serve your community, the state, and the nation in a most exemplary way. Ball State is honored indeed to confer upon you, J. Irwin Miller, the degree of Doctor of Laws with all the rights and privileges thereunto appertaining. I've asked Mr. Miller to give a brief response, such as might be on his mind at this time, on behalf of the 3 recipients of honorary degrees this morning. Dr. Miller.
President Pruis, Dean Burkhardt, Dean Sappenfield, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the three honorees, I'd like to express warmest thanks and gratitude for being included on what is truly a unique occasion in the state of Indiana. On behalf of all Hoosiers, I would like to be grateful also for the reality of this institution now in our state. Its mark will be felt over the generations, and of that we have no doubt. Also, on behalf of Hoosiers, I would like to express gratitude to those members of the Ball family who are here present for the commitment and vision which has made possible the existence of this institution. Without such a determination, the university would not be here today, and we would not be here. Now, this new college, at its very deepest level, is concerned with a phrase called good design. This is a strange thing. In the year of the taxpayers' revolt and economy and everything, what in the world is the importance of good design? Is it merely an ornament and a fringe on the affluent society, or is it anything else? Why should a manufacturer bother with good design if his product sells? Why should the consumer who buys a home or a sofa worry about good design if his friends think it's in good taste? Well, good design, I think, is rather easily defined. It's simply the very best that a man has in him to do. The job of an architect is first and foremost to satisfy the true needs of the client, but he doesn't quite stop there. He also has to satisfy the best that's in him. And if he's a good architect, even though he has pleased the client, if it isn't the best he can do, then it's back to the drawing board for him. The judge of the designer is always his own unforgiving conscience, and it is never some court of current fashion. So in an age when product quality is suspect, when leaders are not credible, when in every public statement it is our habit to seek meanings within meanings, the presence in our midst of good design always reminds us of the honesty, the creativity, and the truthfulness with which each one of us was endowed at birth, and which we must continuously try to recapture. This college can raise a standard, therefore, to a people who are all too easily tempted to confuse appearance with substance. May God prosper this venture.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miller. Now, to close the program, we'd like to do two very important things. You've met a number of significant people, but there are two that remain to be introduced to you. I'd like to ask Mrs. Henry Campheffner to stand and be recognized. And Mrs. Miller. Now we've reached the time of adjournment of these ceremonies. If you would permit the platform party to exit first. We have a little disadvantage, you know. We have to get this off before lunch. We will adjourn with the assistance of the musicians, and after that, we'd like to have you join us on the 5th and 6th floors for the luncheon.